Amber Valdez here, and I've interviewed some of the biggest A-list celebs in the business, from Hugh Jackman to Adam Sandler. But today, I couldn't be more thrilled to have a one-on-one interview with Gary Garner. How are you?
Doing great.
Thank you so much for letting me hang with you today.
Happy to be hanging.
Let's just say that you have gone from big-time CEO running 3 major companies to living in dung huts and being a outdoorsy world traveler, if you will. Why the switch? What was the moment where you said, I'm done with corporate America?
You know, I was doing the standard corporate gig, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, working like a fool, and I just woke up one day and realized that there must be more to life, and that there's something bigger out there that I didn't understand, and I needed to go find it. So I woke up one day and decided to cut the cord. I went from 20 hours a day to packing in everything that I owned, moving into a backpack, and traveling the world.
Did you sell the business? Did you hand it over? Did you sell everything you owned? Or?
Got rid of absolutely everything I owned. When I was ready to go, what I couldn't sell, I gave away. And I literally moved into a backpack, and everything I owned on planet Earth fit inside that single backpack.
What was in that backpack?
You know, when I first started, I gotta say, I went full-on geek, full knucklehead corporate guy, and I went and hired a corporate shopper from REI. And I spent 8 hours tooling around that store and spent like $5,000 buying a bunch of useless crap that I found out I didn't need. So shortly into the trip, I jettisoned 90% of my gear, and I ended up with really just one backpack that had my journal in it, had a handful of art supplies, painted in my journals with everything from mustard to chicken blood.
The trip abroad lasted 5 years. Where did you go?
You know, it was north of the Arctic Circle, south of the Antarctic Pass, heights of Mount Everest, lows of Death Valley, all 7 continents, traveled by everything from dog sled, elephant, horseback, train, foot, every way you could imagine, and I really saw the corners of the planet.
And you had no plan?
No plan, just made it up as I went along. Started in the Yucatan and let every day and the adventures of every day decide where the next day would take place. I'd do some doodling in my journal, and I'd let somebody in my environment kind of dictate how the day went. And the people that I met kind of plotted my course. For 5 years, I'd meet one person and they'd talk about some place in the world, and I'd go there and visit.
What was the most disgusting thing you had to eat?
You know, I didn't find anything, honestly, to be disgusting. It was all a matter of textures. So the tastes were never that bad, but, you know, eating a scorpion is kind of a crunchy texture, or eating a raw piece of animal flesh of one kind or another had a chewy texture, and if you could get your mind past that and just realize that it's what everyone else eats as a daily matter of course, not so bad. You
met some amazing people along the way. There's one of my favorite pictures in your book. You have a child sitting on your lap. Who was that child?
So that was one of my favorite little guys in the entire trip. Little guy about this big, had a hairdo just about like mine, and I was asked by the village chief if I could do something to help their community. So him and the village teacher got together and they argued back and forth in their native tongue for like 15 minutes to decide how I could help them. And after like 15 minutes of conversation, they turned to me and said, "Do you think you could get us another piece of chalk?" I was really torn about what I should do. And should I take them just that piece of chalk, or should I go beyond that and take them pens and papers and pencil and things of that nature? So the little guy you see in the book is the first guy that I gave the educational tools to, and ultimately I decided to give him some paper and some pencils, and that little guy sat on my lap. I handed him a color pencil and he started crunching it down like a carrot stick because it was brightly colored and he didn't know what else to do with it. So immediately I knew we were going to be buddies. I took it out, showed him how to doodle pictures, and we spent the rest of the day drawing pictures with his carrot stick. So it was kind of a nice moment for me.
In one of the chapters in your book, you say, "Sometimes my own arrogance amazes me." That was a very powerful quote. Tell me what you mean by that.
When I engage, and I think when any human engages another person, another culture, they frame everything up from their own perspective. And while I really tried not to do that when I was traveling, I would still make what I would consider to be very arrogant and ignorant assumptions about the people I would engage. And I met a man in Nepal who had no other agenda than to help me get through kind of a perilous situation. And the entire time I kept waiting, kept covering my pockets and waiting for the guy to rob me and thinking that he was going to take me in an alley and put knots on my head. And at the end of the day, he put his life at risk to help me. And all I could say at the end of that experience is that I was embarrassed about the assumptions that I had and the arrogance that I had about his intelligence, his intent, his intellect, and sobering for me. And I recognized that I need to humble my wise ass up and be a little more respectful of those around me, regardless of the circumstance in which I meet.
Everyone wants to know, who is this Renaissance man? Who was he then and who is he now?
You know, 10 years ago, I was a guy who just cared about monetary gain. My focus was building wealth for my clients, creating stronger infrastructure for my own companies, and accumulating things. And now I just trade in a different currency. Now I'm all about trading in time. And I realize that time's the most valuable commodity that I have. And so I try to do things I'm passionate about, things I care about, and things that help me further my philanthropic interest.